Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science, and in this video we'll be going over the basic structures of the nephron. Alright, so just a reminder that our nephron is the functional unit of our kidneys. Alright, so the functional unit of our kidneys. Alright, and later on in our future videos we'll see how our nephrons and our kidneys are really important, all right, and how they play a major role in reabsorption and secretion, all right, and there's hormones that can also regulate our cells and our nephron also, okay. So we'll see that in our future videos. Today, in this video, let's just talk about the basic structure of a nephron. All right, so let's go to a whole new page for this. So first, let's start off by drawing our afferent arteriole, okay? So our afferent arteriole. Okay, so here let's go and draw our afferent arteriole. Alright. Alright, so here I tried to draw a nephron, alright? So it's probably not that good artistic wise, right? But it's good enough just to get the concept down, hopefully. Alright. So right here is going to be our afferent arteriole. Okay, so we're starting our basic structures of our nephron. Alright, so this is going to be our afferent arteriole. And this is where we're going to get all that blood that was originally coming in through our renal artery. So remember our renal artery, right? It's going to branch into many smaller structures, and one of those smaller structures is going to end up branching into is our afferent arteriole. Afferent arteriole, okay? And so this is where all the blood's going to come in into our nephron. All right, and if we mention the afferent arteriole, we should also mention the efferent arteriole. So the efferent arteriole, right? So in this video, we're just doing a short description and mostly just getting familiar with the structures of the nephron, right? In our future videos, we'll actually see the function of what happens in each specific section. But our efferent arteriole, right, branches out. So blood comes in through our afferent arteriole, goes in this tuft of capillaries, which is a structure that we haven't mentioned yet. All right, and then after the blood actually in this structure, it's going to get filtered. So the plasma and all the nutrients in the plasma is going to get filtered into this large C-shaped structure first. And then the rest of the blood is actually going to leave out of the efferent arteriole. All right, and then go join into other capillaries that we'll talk about later. Okay, so we have the afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole. All right. Next structure that we should talk about is this bunch of capillaries here. All right, it's pretty much twisted up capillaries. Okay, a ball of capillaries, and this ball of capillaries right here, capillaries, is going to be called our glomerulus. All right, so it's going to be our glomerulus. All right, guys. So this is where most of our filtration will actually occur, okay? And so we're going to have blood coming in, then filtration is going to occur, and where's that filtrate going to go? Well, then the next structure is going to go to is this C-shaped structure, all right? So the next structure that the filtrate from the glomerulus, the next structure it will go to is this C-shaped structure. And what is this C-shaped structure called? All right, so this C-shaped structure is going to be called let's go ahead and write it down over here, our Bowman's capsule. All right, so our Bowman's capsule. All right, now from here, we see that the filtrate will then travel along the rest of our nephron. But before we go on, let's go and mention one thing, is that the together the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule is known as the renal corpuscle. All right, so together, let's go and write that down here. So together, the renal, let me go and write down the structures first. So together, the Bowman's capsule, all right, so the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus together is going to be called our renal corpuscle. All right, so that's a good term to know. Renal corpuscle. Okay, so now that we know that, let's go and continue talking about the basic structure of our nephron. So now from all the way here, so we talked about the filtrate in our Bowman's capsule. Then from our Bowman's capsule, let's go and trace along, right? So from all the way here, going down, 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 right till here. So pretty much all of this, all right? So all of this right here is going to be one structure. This structure is going to be called our, going over here, write it down over here, is going to be called our proximal convoluted tubule, all right? So that whole structure can be called our proximal convoluted tubule. So our filtrate, right, soon to be urine, is traveling down our proximal convoluted tubule, then it's going to reach our next structure. So our next structure is this whole loop, all right? So this whole loop right here, so the next structure, let me go and highlight that for you guys, right? This whole loop here that we see in the picture is actually going to be called our loop of Henle, all right? So let's go and write that down. So this whole loop is going to be called our loop of Henle. All right, and if we dive a little deeper, if we talk about some of the substructures, you can say, of the loop of Henle, the part of the loop of Henle that's descending, right? So that's descending is actually going to be called the descending loop of Henle. All right, so this part right here, that's actually descending is going to be called the, so let's go and draw it. You know what, let's just go ahead and put it through like that and then come here because it's actually connected, right? So the part that's descending is going to be called our descending loop of Henle. All right, so descending loop of Henle. All right, and then the next structure, right, the ascending loop of Henle, or so I just said the answer. So this part is part of the loop of Henle that's ascending. So this structure right here altogether is going to be called the ascending loop of Henle. So let me go and write that down. So all of this is going to be our ascending loop of Henle. All right, so this is going to be our, let's go and squeeze this in right here, the ascending loop of Henle. All right, and in even more specific, right, we drew a little thick part here and a thin part here. So if we go a little more specific, right, let's see, let's choose a different color. This part right here is going to be our thin ascending loop of Henle. So this part right here is going to be our thin ascending loop of Henle. So let's go and write that down. Our thin ascending loop, oops, sorry about that. Thin ascending loop of Henle. All right. And then the thick part, still part of our ascending loop of Henle, okay? The thick part is going to be called our thick ascending loop of Henle. All right. So this part is going to be called our, sorry about all these arrows, all right? It's going to be called our thick ascending loop of Henle. All right, so that's the loop of Henle, right? That's a general overview of the loop of Henle. Then we move on to another structure. So now the filtrate, sorry about that, now the filtrate is going up the thin ascending loop of Henle, thick ascending loop of Henle. Then it goes on to this whole structure right here all the way to about here. So let's go ahead and target that, all right? So then from here all the way to about here. All right, so let's go and circle that. So this whole weird convoluted tubule, right, is going to be called our distal convoluted tubule. All right, so this is going to be our distal convoluted tubule. Distal convoluted tubule. Okay, and then last but not least, from our distal convoluted tubule, we enter another straight duct here that's going to be called our collecting duct. Okay, so let's go and highlight that real quick. So all the way from here to here is going to be called our collecting duct. All right, and these branches that you see off of here are other distal convoluted tubules of other nephrons. All right. So let's label 1 for now. So like right here, this is a branch. So this is a branch of another distal convoluted tubule, right, of another nephron. All right, so remember, this is one nephron. All this is one nephron, but there's a million in each kidney. So it's just not this one nephron, is there's other nephrons here, maybe, right, that will have their distal convoluted tubule also connecting to this collecting duct. Because right here, we have this distal convoluted tubule right here, but this is for this nephron. There's also probably another nephron here that will also connect to this collecting duct, and this is the distal convoluted tubule branches, okay? So, so that's pretty much it, right, for the basic structures of the nephron, guys. And so before we end this video, I just want to talk about one more thing about the structures of the nephron. So I'm going to have to clear this page again because I don't want to explain it in this one or it's going to get too messy. So hopefully you guys got this down. So I'll go and clear the page, all right, or the ink. The last thing I want to talk about is this dotted line separation here. So what's this dotted line separation? So it turns out that this part, all of this part, is going to be called the renal medulla. All right, the renal medulla, and all the structures above this dotted line is going to be called the renal cortex. All right, is going to be called the renal cortex. So make sure not to confuse renal cortex with adrenal cortex, and don't confuse renal medulla with adrenal medulla. Because remember, our adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla is part of our adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys, not on the kidneys. So if we were to go ahead and look at this picture, we would have our adrenal glands, right, sitting on top of the kidneys right here. All right, so this is going to be our adrenal glands. Now in here, we'll see the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla, all right? But that's not the same as renal cortex and renal medulla, all right? Renal cortex and renal medulla is when we're talking about the nephron, all right? Not the adrenal gland, okay? And so know that the renal medulla is going to be very salty, and we'll see why as we dive deeper, all right, into the kidneys. And so because of this division, we can see that the structures that are part of the renal medulla, right, include our loop of Henle, so our loop of Henle, right, ascending loop of Henle, descending loop of Henle, right, and it includes the collecting duct. So some parts of the collecting duct is also part of the renal medulla, all right, so I'll just say loop of Henle and some of the collecting duct, all right. So collecting duct. All right, and then from the picture, we can see that some structures involved in the renal cortex or that are part of the renal cortex is our renal corpuscle, so our glomerulus and our Bowman's capsule, remember, makes up our renal corpuscle. So let's go and write that down. So right here, let's just write it down. So our renal corpuscle, right? So our Bowman's capsule and glomerulus makes up our renal corpuscle. Then we have our proximal convoluted tubule. That's part of the renal cortex. Our distal convoluted tubule, right, is part of our renal cortex. So all of this. And some of our collecting duct is also part of our renal cortex. All right. So just a little part of our collecting duct is also part of the renal cortex, but it also dips down into the renal medulla. All right, and so that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to discuss in this video, because this video is for the basic structure of the nephron. So I hope this video made sense to you guys. I hope to see you guys in my future videos. We'll talk about more cool topics about biochem, physics, and chem. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, like and subscribe, and see you guys later, and stay safe.